All right, shalom, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, before we get started, I would like to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham Chakodash. Double honors to the apostles and elder bishops of Great Millstone who rule well and teach well and taught us his truth. Peace and salutation as always to the elect. Okay, this is your brother Thabawa'a. Okay, coming back to you with another lesson in the spirit and power of Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai. Okay. And the title of this lesson and what we're going to be dealing with in this lesson is on how these other nations will go. All the other nations will go into captivity under Israel in the kingdom. You know, roughly to that extent. You know, and what kind of inspired me to do this lesson was dealing with, you know, obviously what Christians say. You know that there's not going to be no captives within the kingdom. There's not going to be slavery within the kingdom, and whatnot. And something Vocab said when he, you could say, try to confront GMS London or the UK, one or the other, this past, about a week ago, and he basically called GMS murderers, okay, and because of what we're gonna do to the Edomites, okay, and just basically calling us brute, how we're beasts. He's calling us beasts, because we're gonna take them captives, and it's always a problem when we bring this information out, and this history out. It's always a problem. They always have a problem with us bringing out, oh, there's gonna be captives within the kingdom. But when it comes up with us, when we were taken captive, it was like, oh, you just forget about it, just move past it. No, we're not gonna move past it. All right. And Lord willing, this lesson is edifying through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashim Shai. Okay, so this is Revelation chapter 13 and verse 10. It says, "He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity." Now, first, we're gonna start off by understanding who was taken into captivity. Okay, it was the Israelites. Okay, the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans were the ones taken into captivity. And let's get Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 64. It says, "And Yahweh shall scatter thee among all people." Now, what does this mean? Because people try to, people get this twisted, and this is actually a key point in understanding, understanding what happened to the Israelites. Okay, so it says, "And Yahweh shall scatter thee among all people," meaning all nations on the earth. Okay, from the one end of the earth even unto the other. "And there shalt thou serve other gods, which neither nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone." Okay, so the Israelites would be what? Would be scattered among all nations. Okay. So when the ones who were taken into captivity were the Israelites. Okay, like I said, the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans were the ones taken into captivity. Okay, and who led us into captivity? Starting with the Esau, okay, or starting really, dealing with these other nations, and Esau being the head of who forwarded the affliction, and really put a stamp on it, Now I looked up AI mode, okay, in the Google, okay. I looked up, summarize all the wicked and evil things they did to the indigenous people that were over here during the I said during the transatlantic slave trade and whatnot, So that's what I put in the AI. Now it's going to give a breakdown and a summary on everything this damn devil, okay, Esau, has done. Okay, now we're not going to forget about the other nations, because they all had a hand in the pot of taking us down. You see, but Esau is the head of it. Okay, and then before we move on, let's get Psalms, okay, chapter 83. And we'll start at verse 3. It says, "They have taken crafty counsel against thy people, and consulted against thy hidden ones. They have said, Come and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more remembrance." And this actually happened. We were not cut off forever, but we were basically, we did the scripture saying Jeremiah 17:4 how we would discontinue from our heritage. Okay, and in this captivity that we're in now, we didn't know who we were. Okay, our identity was taken from us. Okay, and we were called by these different social constructs and and the names that got put on us. It says, for they have consulted together with one consent, and they are confederate against thee. Right. These other nations, they have consulted together with one consent. You see, and they are confederate against thee. Now, I want to look up that word confederate. Okay, this is very important. When you go into that word confederate, it says something united in league or alliance. You see? What does confederate mean? It says united in league. You see? Allied. Okay, so dealing with Psalms 83 and 5, it says, for they have consulted together with one consent, they are confederate against thee. They're in league with each other. It says and now it's gonna break down and explain who. Okay, the tabernacles of Edom, the houses of Edom, starting with the Edomites. They really put the stamp on it. Remember, the scripture saying Zephaniah, okay, which we'll grab real quick. Not Zephaniah, Zechariah 1:15, Salakia. It says, am I very sore displeased with the heathen that are at ease? For I was but a little displeased, and they helped forward the affliction. You see? So the affliction was forwarded, man. And the Edomites really were the ones that really put a stamp on it, dealing with that. But Psalms 83 and 6, it says the tabernacles of Edom, the Ishmaelites of Moab, the Hagarims, the Gebel, the Ammon, the Amalek, the Philistines, the inhabitants of Tyre. So it's basically explaining on who was in league, and who was really trying to cast us down from our excellency. And it starts with the Esau Edom. Okay, it starts with the Edomites, because in Ezekiel the 35th chapter, it speaks on how there's a perpetual hatred that he has against us. Okay, so let's get this. This is Ezekiel chapter 35 and verse 5. It says, because thou hast a perpetual hatred, and hast shed the blood of the children of Israel by the force of the sword, in the time of their calamity, and in the time of their iniquity had an end. You see, so Esau has a perpetual hatred, and this goes all the way back in the time of Genesis, the 27th chapter, and the 41st verse, dealing with how Esau, what, matter of fact, let's just grab it real quick. Okay. Genesis 27 and 41. Okay. It says, and Esau hated Jacob because of the blessing. You see, so this Esau was jealous. Okay. Mad, jealous. He had envy in his heart. You see, it says, of the blessing wherewith his father blessed him. And Esau said in his heart, the days of mourning for my father are at hand. Then will I slay my brother Jacob. You see, so that's Esau's mindset. Okay, is to completely take us out. And that's what he's trying to do. You see, that's what he's trying to do. So, dealing with what I'm gonna read here. Okay, this is because Christians like to throw this out. Oh, why just forget about it, or they'll try to say, oh, we'll there was all the nations went into some form of captivity, or blah 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 blah. But the scriptures say how Israel, okay, there was none like how Israel. Man, how does that go? Daniel. No one has been through what Israel had. Daniel 9, if I'm not mistaken. This is Daniel chapter 9 and verse 11. I'll start at 11. It says, yeah, all Israel have transgressed thy law, even by departing, that they might not obey thy voice. Therefore the curse is poured upon us, and the oath that is written in the law of Moses, the servant of God, because we have sinned against him. And this is a part of the reason why we went into captivity in the first place. You see, because when you deal with that. Okay, the Israelites went into captivity because of their disobedience. Okay, this is why the Lord hid his face from us. You see, it says, and he hath confirmed his words which he has spake against us and against our judges that judge us, by bringing upon us a great evil, for under the whole heaven had not been done as had been done upon Jerusalem. You see, and Jerusalem's a people before it's a place. You see, so no matter what it is, the scriptures, okay, when you deal with the scriptures in like Revelation 13 and 10, okay, the ones who were taken into captivity were the Israelites. Okay, and who led them into captivity? Okay, start Esau, Edom, and these other nations, man. Okay, so I want to read a little bit of this and kind of expound on it just a bit. So yeah, I looked it up, and it says here's a summary of the key wicked and evil things that were committed, okay, during the time of the indigenous people that were over here. Which the indigenous people that were over here was the Northern Kingdom, okay, the so-called Latinos and Native Americans. Those were the ones that were already over here, and you could find that history, in dealing with the Northern Kingdom in 2nd Ezra 13 chapter. It breaks down and explains what happened to the Northern Kingdom and where they went. Because when you go into the New Testament, it's like you don't hear about them. Like they're just completely casted away. But there's history on what happened to them and where they went. Okay? You see? So it says, here's a summary of key of wicked evil things that were committed against indigenous people during colonization. It says massacres and violence. European colonists used brutal force to conquer and control indigenous populations. They engaged in unprovoked attacks on indigenous settlements, slaughtering men, women, and children. Forced labor and enslavement. Indigenous people were subjected to systems of forced labor like encomienda and repartimento, where they were compelled to work at mines and plantations under harsh conditions. This was a form of servitude and often amounted to slavery. So now, before we continue, they were already over here before the Europeans even came over here. And the scriptures will tell you that the Northern Kingdom was likened unto a peaceable multitude. Okay, they weren't violent. Okay, because how they portray, us nowadays as violent people. Nah, they weren't violent. They weren't looking for harm. This damn devil came over here starting problems. That's literally what happened. You see? And he came in like the damn devil, making peace treaties with them. Okay, agreeing and then eventually just breaking off. And now it explains to you what they did. You see? It says, disease. European diseases like smallpox, to which indigenous people had no immunity, decimated their populations, leading to mass death and societal collapse. Forced conversation and cultural suppression. And these Europeans are the so-called white people. Okay? It says indigenous people were often forced to abandon their traditional beliefs and practices and convert to Christianity. Woo! You see? They were abandoned their beliefs and what they believed in and convert to Christianity. They were forced to abandon. You see, it says their cultural institutions and languages were suppressed. It says land seizure and displacement. Europeans forcibly took indigenous lands, displacing communities and disrupting their traditional ways of life. You see, disrupting their traditional ways of life. Okay, let's reread that. Europeans forcibly took indigenous lands, displacing communities and disrupting their traditional ways of life. You see, and that's why the scripture says in Revelation chapter 6 and 4, how there came out another horse that was red, and it was given power to him to take peace from the earth. Because all this damn devil can do is take peace from the earth, okay, and bring hell to it. This is why you see going on in all the world, all these riots, okay, death, killing, destruction, rape, rob, and murder. That's all you see around here. You see, it's a land of darkness. You see, this is called the valley of the shadow of death, because it's a death valley, man. Okay, so now it says against enslaved Africans during the transatlantic slave trade. It says abduction and kidnapping. Millions of Africans were forcibly taken from their homes through raids, warfare, and deceit, and transported across the Atlantic. Dehumanizing conditions on slave ships, Middle Passage, enslaved Africans endured horrific conditions during the transatlantic slave journey. They were packed into overcrowded, unsanitary ships, often chained and subjected to violence, disease, starvation, and abuse. And don't forget that some of the slaves were thrown off the boats. Well, let's not forget about that, okay? This is chattel slavery. One in the Americas, enslaved Africans were treated as property bought and sold like commodities. Families were torn apart and individuals were subjected to brutal and dehumanizing treatment. Forced labor on plantations. Enslaved Africans were forced to work on plantations under brutal conditions, producing crops like sugar, cotton, and tobacco for the economic benefit of their enslavers. Since the transatlantic slave trade became inextricably linked with racism, enslavement was justified by the racist ideology that people of African descent were inferior. It says enslaved women and girls were often subject to sexual exploitation and abuse by enslavers and sailors. So now now and they just want us to forget about this. You see, they just just go about your day, forget about. No, that's not happening. Now let's go back to what we just read. Okay, let's go back to what we just read, Revelation 13 and 10. And it says, he that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here is the patience and the faith of the saints. Okay, so all the nations that had a hand in taking us down, destroying us, forwarding the affliction and whatnot, will go into captivity. This is why when you get Revelation, the 18th chapter, it says, let's start at verse 5. It says, for her sins have reached unto heaven, and the Most High has remembered her iniquities. Reward her even as she rewarded you, and double unto her double according to her works in the cup which she had filled to her double. So, and that's this dealing with slavery. Everything this damn devil has done to the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans during slavery, it's gonna come back 10 times harder upon them. You see. And the Lord is not. He's not gonna forget. He's not a man that he shall lie. He's not gonna forget about it. You see, and they'll try to use this as they'll try to say we're murderers, brute beasts. But when you did it, you sit there and try to justify yourselves. You see what happened to us. These devils have no explanation. They can't answer no questions on that topic. But when it comes to us bringing this information out, we're hateful. You see, the scriptures say in 2 Thessalonians 1 and 6, it says, seeing it is a righteous thing with power to recompense tribulation to them that trouble you. You see, and this is a righteous thing, that Yahweh Shai is going to come back and take the throne, and completely and bring righteousness to the earth. And these other nations will be in captivity under us. You see, this is not something that you could just forget. Now let's get this. This is Jeremiah chapter 30 and verse 16. It says, therefore all they that devour thee shall be devoured, and all thine adversaries or enemies, every one of them shall go into captivity. Now, when did this happen? When did this happen? Answer the question. To any Christians who want to try to come on, anybody who wants to try to come on the comment board and say that this is wrong, when did this happen? And they that spoil thee shall be a spoil, and all that prey upon thee I will give for a prey. You see, now let's get this in the NLT. This is beautiful right here. Watch this. This is Jeremiah chapter 30 and verse 16 in the NLT. It says, but all who devour you will be devoured, and all your enemies will be sent into exile. All who plunder you will be plundered, and all who attack you will be attacked. You see, and taken out. All our enemies will go into captivity. You see, no matter how you like it or not. The scriptures talk about how all these curses shall come upon our enemies. This is Deuteronomy chapter 30. in verse 7, it says, and the Lord thy power will put all these curses upon thy enemies and on them that hate thee, who persecuted thee. You see, so all the things that, everything is gonna go back to this damn devil Esau, okay, and these other nations. The only difference is after 1,000 years, Esau, Edom will be cut off from the earth, okay. But during that 1,000 years, the Edomites and these other nations will be in captivity under Israel. You see. Let's get Isaiah chapter 14 and verse 2, and this just proves it. Okay, right here is just a clear cut. This is Isaiah chapter 14 and verse 2. It says, and the people shall take them and bring them to their place. And let's start at verse 1. Okay, it says, Israel's taunt against Babylon. It says, for the Lord, which is named Yahweh, will have mercy on Jacob and will yet choose Israel and set them in their own land. Now, and this just proves that the Jewish people that are the so-called Jews that are over there are not the real Jews, because right here it says, and the Lord will have mercy on Jacob and will yet choose Israel and set them in their own land, and the strangers shall be joined with them, and they shall cleave to the house of Jacob. Now the strangers this is talking about is the Israelite foreigners. Okay, and verse 2 it says, and the people shall take them and bring them to their place, and the house of Israel shall possess them in the land of Yahweh for servants and handmaids, and they shall take them captives, whose captives they were, and they shall rule over their oppressors. You see, what is oppressors? The Hebrew word is nagash. Okay, it says taskmaster. What else? Ain't really much in there. Ruler, oppressed, tyrant, lord. You see, remember, 2 Ezra 6 chapter says this. What does it say? It says, and now, O Lord, behold, these heathen which have ever been reputed as nothing have begun to be lords over us and to devour us. This just proves that the Israelites are in captivity, and in the kingdom they will be servants under us. You see, it says they shall take them captives, whose captives they were. See, they shall take them captives, whose captives they were, and they shall rule over their oppressors, our enemies. We're going to be able to rule over our enemies. It says verse 3, and it shall come to pass in that day that the Lord shall give thee rest from thy sorrow and from thy fear and from thy hard bondage wherein thou was made to serve. You see? So, we're going to be at rest. Okay? But, this just proves, okay, that these other nations will be in servitude under the Israelites in the kingdom when Yahushua comes back. Okay, and he makes his return. Okay? And no matter how much you guys try to justify it or try to debunk it or try to find different holes in the scriptures, which you can't, to say we're wrong, okay, or y'all murderers and make us be ashamed of the gospel, and whatnot. No matter how much you guys want to say something about it, at the end of the day, you're wrong, and it will happen. You see? Let's get Obadiah 1 and 15, and we'll end it off right there. This is Obadiah chapter 1 and verse 15, and it says, the day of the Lord in the future. Okay? It says, for the day of the Lord is near upon all the heathen. As thou hast done, it shall be done unto thee. Thy reward shall return upon thine own head. That's basically the same thing we read in Revelation 18 and 6. Double unto her according to her works. Everything you heathen have done to us, it's going to come back onto you double. Okay? You see, it says, for as ye have drunk upon my holy mountain, so shall all the heathen drink continually. Yeah, they shall drink and they shall swallow down, and they shall be as though they had not been. You see, the Lord is not playing, man. And it is a righteous thing what the Lord is about to do and take place. You see, and what's about to take place. So, Lord willing, this was edifying. Before I close off, I'd like to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahushai. Double honors to the apostles and elder bishops of Great Millstone who ruled well and teach well and taught us his truth. Peace and salutation to the elect. Shalom.